The first time I saw the pen holder, it didn't seem like anything special. Just an old, ornate piece of silver, tarnished with age and sitting on my boss's desk. But something about it didn't feel right. The intricate carvings on its surface, almost like tiny faces frozen in screams, gave me chills. I didn't understand why. It was just a pen holder, right? Or so I thought. That day started like any other. I work as an assistant at a small law firm, mostly organizing files and running errands. My boss, Mr. Dennings, was a strict man, the type who barely looked up from his desk when he talked to you. But he was also highly respected, known for taking on the toughest cases. That morning, he'd called me into his office to dictate some letters. As he spoke, my eyes kept drifting to that pen holder. It wasn't just the carvings. The air around it felt heavy, like the atmosphere right before a thunderstorm. I tried to shake it off, thinking maybe I hadn't slept enough. But then, Mr. Dennings reached out for a pen, his hand hovering over the holder, and I swear to you, the carvings seemed to move. I must have gasped because Mr. Dennings stopped mid-sentence and gave me a sharp look. "Something wrong?" he asked, his voice clipped. "No, sir. Just, thought I saw a bug. Then get rid of it and focus." He didn't notice anything unusual, and maybe I shouldn't have either, but I couldn't let it go. After work, I did some research. The pen holder seemed like an antique, probably one of those pieces people inherit and keep for sentimental reasons. But when I tried asking Mr. Dennings about it the next day, he brushed me off. "It's just a pen holder," he snapped. "Don't waste time on nonsense." His tone made it clear the conversation was over. Still, I couldn't help but notice how tightly he gripped his pen afterward, almost as if touching the holder had unsettled him too. Things started getting stranger after that. It began with small noises, soft, almost imperceptible whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. At first, I thought it was the ventilation system, or maybe my imagination. But the whispers grew louder, clearer, always seeming to echo in the office late at night when I stayed to finish work. One evening, as I was locking up, I heard it distinctly. "Help me." I froze. The voice was faint but desperate, like someone trapped far away. I turned toward the source, Mr. Dennings' office. The door was closed, the lights off. No one else was there. "Is someone there?" I called out, my voice trembling. No answer. I wanted to leave, to run, but something pulled me toward the office. My hands shook as I unlocked the door. The room was empty. Everything was as it should be, except for the pen holder. It was sitting in the middle of the desk, gleaming in the faint moonlight. And then I saw it. The carvings weren't just faces. They were moving, their mouths opening and closing as if screaming silently. I stumbled back, nearly knocking over a chair. The next day I told myself it was just stress. Too much work, not enough sleep. But when I walked into the office that morning, the atmosphere was different. Everyone seemed tense, whispering in hushed tones. "Did you hear?" one of my coworkers asked. "Hear what?" "About Mr. Dennings. He didn't show up this morning. They found his car abandoned on the highway, but there's no sign of him." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. The whispers, the faces, the pen holder, it all came rushing back. I decided I had to get rid of it. That night, I stayed late again, waiting until the office was empty. With a pair of gloves, I carefully picked up the pen holder, wrapping it in a cloth to avoid touching it directly. As I held it, I swear it felt warm, almost like it was alive. I drove to the nearest river, planning to throw it in and be done with it. But as I stood on the bank, holding the bundle, I heard the voice again. "Don't." It was louder this time, more commanding, and for the first time it didn't sound like a plea. It sounded like a threat. I froze, unable to move. The bundle began to shake in my hands, the cloth unraveling as if something inside was trying to escape. Panic took over. I hurled it into the water and ran back to my car without looking back. The next morning, I quit my job. I couldn't stay there, not after everything that had happened. But even now, weeks later, I can't escape the feeling that I made a terrible mistake. You see, the whispers haven't stopped, and sometimes late at night I find pens on my desk, pens I didn't put there.